I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everybody to our July 18th school board meeting. And hopefully everybody's trying to stay cool. It's been really warm. So I'd like to go ahead and start off by asking Joanne to please do roll call.
Mrs. Haro? Mr. Flores? Ms. Doreen Ojeda?
Here.
Mr. Fuentes?
Here.
Mrs. Flores?
Here.
Mr. Ibarra?
Here. Thank you, Joanne. And at this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise so we could renew the Pledge of Allegiance, and if we could ask our superintendent, Dr. Miranda, to lead us, please.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Frank. We also have an interpreter, Ms. Bueno, who is available for Spanish-speaking persons. If you could please come up. Thank you.
We're going to get somebody to help with that real quick. Sorry, Cynthia.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, Board President Ibarra. Good evening, all. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Yo soy Cintia Bueno, soy recepcionista y traductora del distrito. Esta noche estaremos ofreciendo servicios de intérpretes. Si alguien desea escuchar la reunión completamente en español simultáneamente, puede encontrarme en la mesa trasera, donde pueden adquirir unos dispositivos. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead and move right into item 1.3, which is the adoption of July 18, 2024 agenda. And just like to bring to your attention, these are the amendments, closed session items in 9.3, the appointments, discipline, dismissals, and release. We're also going to have an addition of 16 certified regular staff, addition of 1 learning specialist, addition of 2 school psychologists, 2 SPED teachers, and 11 teachers, certificated coaches, head junior varsity football coach, boys, head varsity cross country, co-ed, head varsity wrestling boys, head varsity wrestling girls, and varsity basketball assistant. Also addition of 16 classified coaches, which includes basketball assistant, girls, head junior varsity basketball boys, head junior varsity soccer girls, head junior varsity softball girls, head varsity basketball boys, head varsity basketball boys. I assume that's 2, unless it's -2. And head varsity basketball girls, head varsity softball girls, head varsity tennis boys, head varsity volleyball girls, junior varsity football assistant boys, pep squad director, co-ed, soccer assistant boys, varsity football assistant boys, 2. And in addition of 2 volunteer coaches, cross country, co-ed, and football boys. At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval, please.
I'll move that.
Okay, I hear Mr. Fuentes and Ms. Haro. So on a motion by Israel Fuentes and second by Pat Haro to adopt the agenda as recommended, all those in favor, unless anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, indicate by stating aye. Aye. Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? At this point, it's 6-0 with Board Member Sandoval missing. So on a motion by Israel Fuentes and second by Pat Haro, and on a 6-0 vote, the board adopted the agenda as recommended. Thank you. Items 2.1, introduction of new management. We're going to ask Dr. Today to please come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening, Board President Ibarra, board members, Superintendent Dr. Miranda, and members of the audience. I'd like to first introduce our new assistant principal at Colton High School, Danielle Modikev. So Danielle has been in a lot of leadership roles. She's been an AP for 12 years. She's coached at the collegiate soccer level at University of Laverne. She was an ELD teacher and an adjunct English professor. Fun facts, we have a lot in common, and I was just talking to her family, I won't spoil that, but she's received a Division I soccer scholarship and played semi-pro for the Women's Blues Soccer Organization. She has been at USSF state soccer referee. One of the best accomplishments that she had is being a mom and having 2 teenage boys, Troy and Daniel, as well as helping to raise her cousin Cameron, who just graduated from Grand Canyon University. Her son, Troy, attends UCI, and Daniel is a senior in high school. She comes from a very passionate mother, who's here as well back there. If you can't tell, they look just alike, who taught English at Chaffey Community College and Ganesha High School for 22 years. And so we're so excited to have Danielle and really looking forward to what she could bring to our management team, especially for Colton High School community. I'd like to give her a moment to address the board.
Good evening to the board and to our superintendent. I just want you to know that I'm very thankful and honored to be here, and I can't wait to serve the community. So thank you so much. One more thing I would like to introduce, so if you could stand for me, Troy, it's my 19-year-old son, Daniel, my 17-year-old, and my mom, Patty, who I hope to bring back out of retirement to teach. So, yeah.
Thank you. One more applause for Danielle, please. Our next new member of our new management team is our new assistant principal at Grand Terrace High School, Vu No. The Vu has had a variety of great positions as well. Educational leadership roles include being a school site administrator and a district level administrator. He taught for several years in the social science and math area. He's been an instructional coach, department lead. He's been a coach. He is considered an LAUSD, the mastery learning and grading expert. And his fun facts are he's the youngest of 5 children. Lived in Pomona pretty much all of his life, attended and graduated, I don't know how you do this and do this, but attended and graduated from UCLA and USC. So
Hey,
you got one of those cool t-shirts. But that was awesome. So who do you root for?
I'm a closet Trojan and Bruin.
Okay, all right, I like that response.
Who's ever winning?
Prior to going into education, he was doing ministry for LA County and U.S. hospitals. He's an avid hiker. He's summited nearby peaks, including San Gorgonio, San Bernardino, Mount Baldy, Mount Wilson, and Mount Whitney. He's also an avid runner. He has completed the LA, San Francisco, and Big Sur marathons.
Oh,
So
wow.
definitely, I'm a walker, so you definitely beat me. But so happy to have Vu join us, and he's already made an impact at Grand Terrace High School, and just excited to see what he brings to the team and to that community as well. So I'd like to give him a moment to address the board.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the Board of Education and also our Superintendent, Dr. Miranda. thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I'm so excited to work with our team at Grand Terrace. We have Vanessa, we have Sean, and my principal here, Mr. Charles Neighbors. We have an excellent team. I'm excited for every day, and I look forward to working with our team and also with the district this upcoming year. And also with me, obviously you can hear by now, my sweetheart, my high school sweetheart, and now wife Michelle, and my other full-time job, Benson, who's only 2.5 years. So.
Yeah, hey, big boy.
And Mr. Vu also has one on the way that's be here in October, so both hands will be full.
Congratulations. Yes, good job.
All right. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
One more round of applause, please, for Mr. Miller. And that concludes my presentation for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dede. Very good. Very good. We got two excellent assistant principals coming into our district. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to 3.1, which is public comment. Board bylaws 9323 states that individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 15 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask the additional person speak only if they have something new to add. Thank you, sir. First person, Ms. Lisa Villa.
Testing. There it is. Got it. Let me get back. Good afternoon, everyone in attendance. My name is Lisa Villa, and I reside in Colton. As the new school year is about to begin, I'd like for everyone to hear some key phrases that could benefit you, because I'm concerned by some of the decisions that have been being made within the last couple of months that were unnecessary and made no sense. The reason that most people join the education system is because most of us care about the communities and students that we serve. Money is what gets employees through the door of the district, and the culture and the atmosphere is what make people stay. Clearly, I did not stay for 35 years because I liked the culture of this district, but because I was worried about my community and the leaders that lead it. So I did my part to help my community, and I had to do it with one hand tied behind my back because me helping my community was hindered and frowned upon. Most employees should want their employees to be successful and should want to create a positive culture. The security managers should create a positive environment, not a toxic environment like it currently is. Managers should be monitored because their abuse of power is out of control in this district. The security managers should want their employees happy because it keeps campuses positive and the students and staff will thrive even more. Inside information is what you should want to hear so that we all can be better as a team. You should want to hear from the front lines. When the district employees are happy, the campuses will thrive. When the staff is complaining about unfairness, harassment, or are looking for other jobs, that should be a red flag to you. Managers need to be willing to put their power aside for the betterment of the campuses. The reason you have 35-year employees is because some of those employees are happy because they were never harassed or because they are at sites that they prefer. The only reason I stayed for 35 years and endured the harassment and hostile work environment is because I care about my Colton community. And I saw that the leaders of the district did not care about the families of the community. Staff and students will remember how you made them feel. Every moment matters. I have spent endless hours begging you to listen in one ear and out the other. You should consistently encourage the see something, say something to students and the staff. As of right now, there are many people in our district who don't even know when the first day of school is. A lot of disconnect between the district and the communities. There should be consistent policies and procedures straight across the board. In the education system, it should be about building connections, healthy connections. It should be a partnership. We should all be on the same page. I know you know I did not want to work in Bloomington. I asked for official transfer back to a high school, but instead you pushed me out of Colton. Yes, I will shine in Bloomington because student success is more important than my pride, but clearly you did not care about what makes me happy. Security managers abuse their power and transfer people on a regular basis. No other department is transferred like the security department. How you allow the security supervisors to do this consistently blows my mind. Everyone's voice should be heard. It is our responsibility to speak up. If we have questions or concerns, you should believe that every voice matters, and if we speak up or say something, you should not come back at us and transfer us or harass us. You should encourage raising concerns with this district, supervisors, HR, or any type of leadership. Thank you for your time.
Any other cards, Ms. Medina? No, thank you. All right. Just want to say thank you for the information. Just want to make sure, there's one thing that did pop, is that, families do get the word out when school starts, because I've been asked a few times too. So, we need to make sure that that word gets out to the whole district if you can, please.
There have been several, so we've got kids enrolled, we've gotten emails, text messages. I think it's more about surprise how early the year starts than it is that they're not aware. I think folks are just thinking, wow, that's pretty early, so.
At my vacation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on. We're looking at 4.0, which is our administrative presentation. We're looking at items 4.1, which is District Visual and Performing Arts Education Annual Report. And I'd like to ask Tina Peterson to the podium, please. Dr. Peterson.
President Ibarra, board members, Superintendent Dr. Miranda, and members of the audience, it is my pleasure tonight to introduce Director Dr. Eric Mooney, our secondary director. He's been working with our visual and performing arts teachers for the last couple of years on a visual and performing arts plan. And part of that plan is has to do with a Prop 28 or music in schools funding. And so he's going to have a short presentation for you tonight regarding that funding.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Good evening, Board President Ibarra, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Miranda, members of Executive Cabinet, and members of the audience. Tonight, I'll be providing you with that 2023-24 annual report for our Prop 28 Arts, Music in Schools Funding Grant. Per Education Code Section 8820I, local education agencies shall conduct annual audits and include all funds received under the grant and determine whether the funds were expended in accordance to the requirements of Section 8820I. The Arts, Music in Schools grants requirements include board approval of the annual audit, which is brought tonight for board consideration. It also requires that the audit be posted on the district's website and submitted through the Arts and Music in Schools portal prior to July 31st, 2024. Each year that we receive Arts and Music in Schools funds, we will need to conduct an audit regardless of whether the funds were expended in the audit year. Tonight, also for your consideration, is a VAPA manager. This position will provide the needed support to not only ensure we are staying in compliance with the grant requirements, but working with our teachers of the arts and administrators to ensure the use of the funds align to our strategic plan and vision for our district arts programs. As many of you know, Prop 28 passed overwhelmingly, supporting additional funding to increase arts instruction. In the report presented tonight for your consideration,
you can see the allocations by site. It is important to remember that it is based on the 70-30 enrollment allocations, resulting in different amounts per site. Prop 28 also requires that 80% of the funding be used to hire staff, and the remaining 20% can be used for training, supplies, and materials. Another important note, school districts have 3 years to spend the funds they receive. So funds received in the 23-24 school year must be spent by the 26-27 school year. The California Department of Education recognized that it's not always possible to spend all the funds allocated and established a waiver authority in Education Code Section 8820H. This chart provides an overview of that process. A district can submit a request for a waiver if the district plans to spend the funds on other arts-related materials, equipment, or supplies. Colton Joint Unified School District plans to submit such a request for much of the 23-24 allocated funding. Working with the anticipated VAPA manager, fiscal services, our director of facilities, teachers of the arts, and site administrators, we will submit a comprehensive request targeting needed equipment, supplies, and art-related materials. This report will be a written request submitted on the CDE portal. Although we have time at any point within the 3-year expenditure period to submit that plan, we plan to submit our letter by mid-August. Details of the waiver request will be provided through board correspondence. Prop 28 requires that there be a plan for spending the funding received. CJUSD has developed such a plan and will use it as a roadmap to meet our district's arts strategic vision. Let's hear it. And next slide, please. That vision is to provide equal access to a multicultural, equitable, and diverse arts education to all students. Since our last presentation, the district has added art and music courses to more elementary schools using Prop 28 funds. This school year, 2 middle schools are expanding drama to their offerings. And at one of our high schools, a music production course has been added to the course offerings. This slide shows the 23-24 expenditures. In the first column, it shows the school site. The second column, program added. The third column shows the type of staffing added. And the final column shows the cost. In closing, I felt I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work and commitment of the arts educators that contributed to the strategic plan. A heartfelt thanks to all of those who have charted a path forward with arts education. These 4 areas of focus are the cornerstones of a brighter arts education for all Colton students: equity and access, curriculum and instruction, community integration, and support and resources. Our future reports will be grounded in these areas of focus, and we look forward to providing these yearly success stories on the arts education and CJUSD to the Board of Education and the greater Colton community. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you very much for your report. And Pat?
Art in elementary school. We hired 4 teachers, right? Was it 4 teachers for art, and they travel? How often are students getting art education if we have 4 teachers in, 18 elementary schools?
and ask my Dr. Peterson or Dr. Hyder.
So a few years back, we originally hired 9 enrichment teachers, and part of that was music. There are music teachers within that through the LCAP. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hire all 18 that we had planned, so this allowed us to hire an extra 4 teachers. We have LCAP support for the extra PE teachers. So this year, for the first year, we have funding for 18. Three of each teachers will work within the 6. Each 3 schools are a cohort. Each 3 teachers will work within 3 schools to provide art, provide music, provide band, or provide theater, whichever positions we're hiring, or STEAM, and they'll rotate that. So there's a schedule that goes out every year. Dr. Hyder works with the elementary teachers on that, and so that's planned at the beginning of the year and provided. So all students are getting the opportunity to support that. We've started that with 9. The past few years, we've had 9 schools, and it's worked with them, and so we're expanding that to the other 9.
So these teachers are each teaching music, and they're teaching art, and they're teaching what else?
So there's PE, there's music, there's art, and there's, I believe, a STEAM. Did we hire a STEAM teacher? And a STEAM teacher, which has arts within that.
Okay, so are they, I guess I'm confused.
So they jump in for like a period. They'll go to one site. They'll spend a day on a site, and at that site they'll go to a grade level and allow those teachers to collaborate while they teach art. Then they'll go to the next grade level and so forth. So they're rotating within those sites.
So one day this teacher is doing all art in one school, and then the next day they're doing music, and then you said PE? I'm confused on how we're reaching,
Okay.
They're doing all 3.
So the art teacher would go one site one day or 1 week, and then the next school the next week, and then the third school the third week. The PE teacher would go opposite that. So you'd have a week of arts, the next week you're getting PE, the next week you're getting music. And they have it set up, so Dr. Hyder, if you want to add to that.
It's a little confusing, and we have been building this program for the last 2 years. I think this year we have fully staffed and are ready to begin. So the way it will work, each 3 schools will have 3 teachers, and for most schools it's 1 PE teacher, 1 art teacher, and 1 music teacher. So what they will do is all 3 teachers, the PE teacher is only teaching PE, the art teacher is only teaching art, and the music teacher is only teaching music. And since we put this position for many, many years. Actually, it's literally like 2 years, and it's been difficult to hire music. So we hired 3 STEAM teachers. So basically, these 3 teachers will be at a school site 1 week. So all that week, one school will be, of course, different grade levels. They will be getting both all 3, PE, music, and art. Then they will go to another school site. So to explain, every 3rd week, a school will be getting all these 3 things for the whole week, spread across all classes.
So can we get a list that shows, because I think the presentation is okay, but it would be nice to know how this is going to work. I mean, there's a lot of words here, but you know, what you're explaining is not how I understood it. So that's why if it'd be nice to have a list to see what we're actually doing and how we're separating these people and what they're doing at the elementary schools. Middle school. Some of our middle school teachers, well, I know one left us, but our middle school band teachers, they didn't have any experience because when they get their credential, they're getting it in music, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily a choir teacher. A choir teacher isn't going to necessarily, they can teach band, but that, you know, vice versa. And she wasn't a choir teacher, so that consequently Colton Middle they did band, and then they did mariachis there, but they never had choir. And the whole idea of putting in choir at middle school when this was put into place was so that they would feed into the high school choir programs. What are we doing to address that those middle schools that don't have that experience?
Absolutely. So the goal is to work with HR to actively seek out the qualified applicants and teachers for those positions. At the middle school, they work as credentialed teachers in certain areas that they specialize in, and they offer those particular electives. So we want to ensure, as the vision of the strategic plan, is that we have representation in all of those areas, providing access to all of the different visual arts for those students at that particular school, so that they're at all of our 4 middle schools, that there would be a band teacher, that there would be a choir teacher, that there would be a drama teacher, so that the students then can have a robust offering of the arts and they can make that selection at their schools.
Okay, well, if we could get a list, as I said, of what is going, on it, like for the middle schools, that would be really, or the elementary schools, that would be really nice to see how that program is going to work. I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat. So before we move on, let me ask the board, are we okay with directing them to get the list? Put something together, a schedule, how the rotations are? Dan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm thinking, Board Member Hart raises good questions, because this is so new and there's now an additional offerings. I think it helps to see it, certainly at the elementary level, what the rotation looks like. But I'm also thinking, having a middle schooler, at a middle school level, because they're still only going to have, I presume, the 2 electives. So now we've got multiple. So what will that look like at a middle school level? Are we really going to then be able to offer all of these options and opportunities to the kids? And filling those positions is going to be a challenge, certainly. But it'd be nice to be able to just see that, as Board Member Hart said. I think there's so many moving parts. Having almost a visual of how it works will be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. And I also think that if we're able to show some kind of scheme of how that's going to look, we could also have that available for if parents ask, how's this going to look? What can my student actually participate in, and how we're going to design that? I think that would be big, primarily middle school, elementary school, et cetera.
I think what you'll find is you'll have students who will want to do more than they probably are able to, given the fact they only got the 2 electives. And so there's a lot of crossover here with a lot of these kids that want to participate in a variety of the arts, because they're very talented, whether it's choir, band, theater, media arts, dance. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how we can pull it together.
Not just the art programs, there are, of course, the other academic programs that they're wanting to be a part of as well, and trying to fit in AVID or be in leadership and also do the arts and take a world language. So it will, as we start to get out to the sites, talk to the teachers, talk to the students, and look at their interests, we now have a funding source to be able to work with HR to actively recruit to build all of those programs out for our middle school students.
Just when you bring that up, like I know at Bloomington High School, where kids can't fit choir into their program, it's a class that people want, that class. And so Mr. Duckworth runs an after-school choir. And so he calls it his concert choir. So it's not, they're not getting, a grade on it or anything, but it's always packed. So
That might be a nice solution, because again, yeah, I know, for example, my son, there's multiple electives he'd like to take. He can only do the 2, and so, but if there were an after-school option, I know that he would love to participate, and I think a lot of students will be in that situation, so yeah, it could be interesting.
Okay, thank you. Bertha?
Yes, I had a question about the expenditures on slide 13.
Hold on a second, Bertha, before you go there. Okay. We had a question by Ms. Harrow, and I just want to make sure that before we direct staff, that we get a consensus from the board to go ahead and do that. And I'm seeing everybody saying yes. Thank you, Pat, for bringing that up. So we go ahead and have a consensus, Mr. Superintendent. Okay. Okay, Bertha, you're on.
Yeah, Dr. Mooney, on the expenditures for the schools, are these salaries or are they stipends?
Those are teacher salaries.
Are any stipends available for our music teachers, art teachers?
There are stipends available. We will work that through our Arts Leadership Council And that was one of the things that were part of our strategic plan, that we will be providing stipends for teachers that represent the different areas of the arts to come and be experts on that Art Leadership Council to help provide support for the VAPA manager.
And I just have a comment. This is a very unique opportunity that we have. You know, we have these funds available, and this is, you know, we've had it for 2 years, and we're still continuing. I mean, this is our opportunity to have a state-of-the-art visual and performing arts program, and that's. I just want to make sure that we're putting everything and anything we can to make this an exemplary program. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Bertha. Joanne, anything? No? Okay. Israel? Okay, I just had one question, and just a curiosity. I noticed that most of the elementary schools were averaging around $10,000, if you average it. But we do have 3 that Sycamore, 60,000, Grimes, 59,000, and DRC, 59,000. So there's a big disparity between the other schools and the amount of money that these individual schools are asking for or getting. Can you explain the rationale for that, please?
All right, the cost, because there's there's staff salaries, based on where they are on the pay scale is how that is determined. So the teacher that is selected for that position and based on where they are, that is the shared then amount with those 3 schools. If they're, again, lower on the scale, then it's going to be less of a percentage and portion for that school.
Just to see if I understand this correctly, then those particular 3 schools have teachers that have been around a while, and they're higher on the pay scale, thus they a little bit more. I see Tina say, yep.
And some of the backup to this is we still have funding for arts and LCAP, and so they're also using that funding.
To
the idea
create
is
a
to
program?
put equity. The idea is to have equity across the district, not equal equity, to support the needs of each site. And so that's how that team, the arts leadership team, with the VAPA plan, that's how, when they get together, they will determine how that funding is approved or how it goes around.
Yeah, and the way I was looking at it as a possibility, and I didn't know whether these particular 3 schools were starting to build a program from scratch, where the others have already started their programs and had already been moving forward. And is that a true summation there? No. Okay.
Just their salaries.
Just salaries. Okay. Just curious. Thank you for that. If there's no other question, Joanne, I think I got her going.
I don't know if there'd be any way to do this or not, but because we're adding so many additional opportunities in the arts program and attendance is such a big issue for us, it'd be interesting to see if we could just talk to principals, and if the kids know these programs are coming that week, do we have better, does that improve our attendance? Because I bet it will. I'm just curious if we can possibly look into maybe having that happen. I don't know. I see looking over there, Anthony. But the arts really makes kids want to come to school, and if some of these kids might be more apt to come to school if they know that they're going to have a fun week, because those fun weeks get their attention, and it's a hook to get them.
There's a little truth to that. Yeah.
You do that?
Also, Dr. Mooney, I have another question. I'm sorry. Just lost my train of thought. Oh, the elementary teachers, are they going to have a certain curriculum that they're going to follow each week, or is it just up to them to teach whatever they want? I mean, yes, you may phone your friend. Sorry.
I think everybody knows is Dr. Hyder is our director of elementary education. Okay, just to be fair to Dr. Mooney.
And his
Dr.
friend.
Mooney's assistant. I help him. So this, as I had mentioned, we have been gradually trying to build this program. about now, we still are missing one teacher. We are hoping to hire very soon. So we didn't have a chance. Thankfully, we have had some teachers. We had one teacher who actually moved from high school to teach one of our elementary. We had a music teacher who also moved from middle school. So we were depending on them to develop some curriculum, and all the new teachers, they have been mentored by these veteran teachers with the thing. So now that we have everybody in place, we are going to work on developing a more consistent curriculum. For now, the teachers are designing their own curriculum. But moving forward, that will be our next step.
Okay. All right, if there's no other questions from the rest of the board, thank you for that. And thank you, sir. Okay, let's go ahead and move on 4.2. I'd like to ask Mr. Fromm to the podium, please.
Good evening, Board President Ibarra, board members, Superintendent Dr. Miranda, and members of the audience. Tonight, we're going to be doing something of a first here in Colton Joint. We're going to be providing an update on the bond. Our consultant, Ms. Joy Kumer, she's a partner at Team Civics. She is ill, so she's going to be participating via WebEx. So I'm going to turn it over to her and Brandon, and I'm going to be the next slide guy for the presentation.
Craig, if I may also, for the board to note, we also have our financial advisor, Mike Williams, here. And so he is prepared to answer questions if there's anything that comes up. And so just wanted to make that note for the board. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent, members of the cabinet. I'm Joy Kumer. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I apologize I was not able to be there in person. I was looking forward to meeting everyone. We've had a great collaboration with the district team over the past several months. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this via WebEx. So thank you very much for having me here this evening and allowing this accommodation. I am a partner at Team Civics. Our firm is dedicated to working with school districts across California, helping them pass public finance measures that enables them to accomplish goals that they set out for their school districts. And one of the majority of our work is around school bonds that help provide essential funding for school modernization and updates. And tonight I'll be presenting about some of the work that we've done, as well as information about a tracking survey that was conducted of likely voters in the district regarding that proposed bond measure. Next slide, please. So in setting the tone for this, I thought it would be helpful to just talk a little bit about types of bonds that districts can consider, and when they're looking at this, what avenues that they can take. There really are very few ways for districts to address school facility needs. The state simply doesn't provide adequate funding to meet these needs for school districts, and so many of them look for local funding sources such as school facility bond measures. This enables them to have local funds that would qualify them for state matching funds when they are available, which is a requirement to access those state funds. There are two types of bonds that are available for school districts: Proposition 46 bonds and Proposition 39 bonds. I've listed the differences between those two here for you to see. You can see one of the main differences is the voter approval level. We are focused on a Proposition 39 bond, and that's what will be discussed tonight. In order to qualify for that lower threshold, though, there are some restrictions around those types of bonds. They include that those bonds have to go on regularly scheduled elections, such as the presidential elections in the even years like now, or the gubernatorial elections that will happen in 2 years. So you can't go on any election. You can only go on those even-numbered elections. How the bond funds are used, you can use them for repair, construction, furniture, and technology items. All of those are allowable expenses under a Proposition 39 bond. You are, however, limited on the tax rate. You are limited to $60 per 100 of assessed valuation. That is the highest amount you can go for. You can, of course, always consider lower amounts below that top threshold. You're also required under a Proposition 39 bond to have citizens oversight and annual audits. And the final requirement is that 2/3 of all board members must vote in approval in order to put a bond measure on the ballot. And just a special note there that that's not 2/3 of members who are present or available. That is always 2/3 of the entire board. Next slide, please. So we've been working these past several months under the timeline that I think is helpful to share with the board tonight and our audience. In order to qualify for this November's election, the board does need to vote on a proposed resolution and deliver that resolution by August 9th of this year to the county register of voters. I think it's helpful to sort of, in looking at this, note that there are two different colored arrows, blue arrows and gold arrows. All of those items that are blue are items that the district can do as part of its efforts to explore the feasibility of a potential bond measure and ultimately make a decision about whether to vote to place that bond measure on the ballot. That final arrow indicates work that has to be taken up by a separate independent campaign committee. The district can always provide non-advocacy communications about a potential bond measure that they are either considering or that is on the ballot, but they can't ever advocate for that bond measure. They can't ask local voters to take a position. Over the past few months, we've been working on that feasibility, including a voter survey, discussing a potential tax rate, and looking at other things that might be on the ballot at the same time. At the same time, we've been working on the project list, non-advocacy communications, and some community outreach. So we're now at a point where we can share some of our voter survey results with you tonight. Next slide, please. I thought also it's helpful just to take a quick look at the snapshot of what your district looks like. There are a little over 59,000, almost 59,500 registered voters in the district. They are encompassed in 27,644 voter households. You can see I've divided your registered voters in 3 different pie charts. The first one shows your political affiliation of your voters. And you can see that 47% are registered Democrats, 22% are registered Republicans, and 31% make up all other voters. Those all other voters are likely mostly independent voters, though they can make up some other third-party type candidates, such as Peace and Freedom or Green Party, for example. Your age demographics, you'll note that you have a large population of voters between the age of 34 and 18. That's not true in every community. In many communities, the majority of voters are under the age of, or excuse me, are over the age of 65. So the fact that you have such a young community suggests that you likely have a lot of connection to your local schools. And then finally, we did break up your district by ethnicity, just so that you can see how registered voters identify themselves ethnically when they register to vote. And you can see that 60% of your population does identify as Latino. We expect this November turnout in your district, based on previous elections, would be about 78%. It could be lower or higher depending on the national race, but that would trend very closely to how people have turned out previously in other presidential elections. Next slide, please. A brief overview of our completed communications to date. So far, in February, we worked on some initial communication materials with members of the district. It included fact sheets, FAQ, and materials to put up a website so that community members could find more information out about plans for that potential bond. We also, in March, sent off a tear-off survey informational mailer. And we sent some other informational materials that would allow people to share their responses about how they feel about some of the priorities of the district and the district considering a potential GEO bond. In April, we also sent a second informational mailer. And again, both of these mailers were sent in Spanish and English. And then in May, a tracking survey was completed to gauge voter support for this potential measure, and I'll be sharing those results here too. Next slide, please. I wanted to share just some quick snapshots of the first informational that we sent out. This is the mailer. It included a QR code and the ability for people to respond back to us and share their thoughts about the proposed measure. Next slide. Survey responses. So we did hear back from people from that first measure, and you can see people responded back, rating many of the same items that the district were interested in pursuing for a potential bond in the high 90 percentile range. This shows great alignment with your community. They agree with you. These should be some of the top priorities that you and the district should have for your schools. So this shows very close alignment with our project list, and we don't always get to say that, but these are very strong numbers. And it's important to note that anyone could take this survey, not just registered voters or not just people who were called or asked to participate in a scientific survey. This was open to everyone in the community. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read all these comments, mostly because I want to save my voice a little bit, but I pulled some of the comments that people shared back with us about their thoughts on this potential bond measure and how they felt about it. We did receive some people who were worried about costs for themselves, but the majority of the comments were very positive and were encouraging the district to move forward in updating schools and doing some of these critical repairs and updates. And I'll just pause for a moment. Oh, okay, here we go. Moving right into the tracking survey. The survey was conducted by True North Research. They have done the polls for the district in the past. The purpose of the study was to provide an updated assessment to see if the bond measure was feasible, make sure that we were consistent with community priorities, and gather this information so it could be used for communication and outreach to the community. How the survey was completed is it was actually, they did talk to registered voters, likely registered voters, who would vote in a November election. They used a scientific method that identified people through a stratified and clustered random sample of those likely voters, using specific demographics such as age, gender, partisanship, household party type, and other sub-geographies. This ensures that the survey is balanced and representative of your likely voters. Voters had to take the complete survey in order to be counted for these results tonight. Voters were recruited in 3 different ways: a personalized email, text, or telephone call. And they did have restricted pins to ensure that only each respondent could only complete one survey. The sample was offered in English and Spanish. We said that we would collect 400 completed interviews, which is a standard for scientific surveys such as this. We have 401 completed interviews. This gives an overall margin of error of 4.9%, which means if they had talked if they had been able to speak to every single registered voter in your district, they believe that they would be 4.9% within the margin of how all voters would feel. And I can say I've worked with True North in many school districts throughout your county and the Inland Empire, and their results are always spot on. So I have a high level of confidence in their surveys as well. Next slide, please. The first thing that they asked in the survey was just a little bit of a warm-up question. It asked people to think about the importance of the issues that they felt based on their own community and as they saw it today. These items were asked in random order, and we've ranked them here from highest to lowest. One of the really interesting things that you can see is right off the top, the first and highest priority is improving the quality of education in local schools. And then at the second to the bottom is preventing local tax increases. So we see a pretty good delta there between their highest priority, which is improving the quality of education, and preventing local tax increases. You'll also note right in the middle is repairing and renovating aging school facilities. This is very common. We see this all the time, where the actual repair of buildings tends to do less better than improving the quality of education. But that said, it still is ranking higher than preventing local tax increases. Next slide, please. So this reflects the initial ballot test that was tested in the survey. It's very close to the actual survey, the actual ballot question that the district is considering for this November. At this point, we were testing a $50 per 100 of assessed valuation bond. That would have generated $246 million for the district. At the top, you'll see that we've listed some types of projects that the bond measure could fund. That's a general summary of the types of projects. Everything that you see from that paragraph in the bottom, starting with Shell Colton Joint Unified School Districts measure be adopted, all the way through to while bonds are outstanding with citizens' oversight, with independent audits. All of that is actually required to be in the ballot question. We have very little ability to change any of that language. It's legally required by law. So it's only those things at the top that really talk about the types of projects that we could be doing, that we can change. So after either reading or hearing this ballot question, next slide, please, you can see that 70% of voters said yes, with 35.8% saying they would vote definitely yes, and 34.1% saying probably yes, and only 12.8% saying probably saying definitely no. These are very strong results for a potential GO bond measure. This is before they've heard any more information about the types of projects that you would be doing, or even any persuasive messages about this potential bond measure. Next slide, please. We then took the blinders, we put the blinders on, and we really focused on only the tax rate here. And so we stopped telling them about the projects, and we just said, if you knew that this would cost homeowners, property owners, $50 per 100,000 of assessed valuation, would you vote yes or no? And you can see that the yes percentage does drop down when we now focused only on the tax rate. You can see at the $50 tax rate, we're at 46% who have indicated yes. And at the $34 tax rate, we move up to 55%. It's important to note that voters heard this in what is referred to as a Dutch auction style. So if you said yes at the $50 rate, you did not hear the $40 rate. And if you said yes at the $40 rate, you did not hear the $34 rate. So only those who kept saying that they were no or unsure heard the lower dollar amounts. Next slide, please. We realize that when we ask that question in isolation, it's really hard for voters to do the math on the fly. They hear these numbers, they hear tax rate, and they're being asked many things. They're being asked to know what the assessed valuation of their home is, as well as now being required to do the math on that $40 on their assessed valuation. So we come at this another way, and we actually do the math for the voters. And we say, what if you knew that $40 or $50 tax rate would actually only cost the typical homeowner $124 a year? And you can see when we do the math for these voters, the support goes up, and we're now up above that 55% threshold for passage. The $84 rate is actually a reflection of the lowest dollar tested before the $34. So you can see support goes up even higher at the lower dollar amount as well. Next slide, please. Next in the survey, we asked people about the types of projects and improvements they would like to see the bond measure fund. Again, here you can see we tested many projects that were closely aligned to the types of things that we heard the district would be interested in and needing for your school sites. And I think the most important takeaway from this slide is that every single project in this page is over 55% of respondents strongly favoring the district spending money on these types of projects. And when we add in somewhat favor, you can see every single project is over 80%. Again, strong alignment with your community on the types of projects that the district has identified as needing to be done. There are no anchors here. Everyone agrees that these are priorities for the district. Next slide, please. In this slide, we then provided them with a few positive arguments to help them understand a little bit more about the bond measure and how those projects might solve some of the issues that the district has or provide just some additional context around them. And here again, you can see all of these arguments were extremely very convincing or somewhat convincing. Almost all of them reaching nearly 80%. People agree that these things are all important. At the top of the list, you can see explaining to voters that the schools were built over 60 years ago, and some don't meet current building safety, and then others may have hazardous materials. We need to make sure that we're updating our schools. People are very much in agreement and alignment that that is important. Also, accountability. Voters, the third one. This measure requires a clear system of accountability, a project list, describing how money will be used, Citizens Oversight Committee, independent audits, and public disclosure. Again, very strong responses from your community to all of these statements. Next slide, please. After people had an opportunity to hear more about the tax rate, which cooled down their support for the measure just a little bit, but then came back strong when they saw and heard more about the projects that you might be doing, you can see when we asked the ballot test again, we've moved to 63%. 38% solidified as definitely yes, 25% is probably yes, we're in a very strong place for a 55% ballot measure. Even if you were to include that margin of error, we would still be above 55% at this point. Next slide, please. Just after we asked the second ballot test, we followed up with some negative statements. No survey would be complete if we did not actually provide voters with some oppositional statements that they might hear during an election. Those types of statements included such things as people being concerned about inflation, gas prices being higher, groceries being higher. Also, the district should live within its means. We included 2 or 3 statements that just really were meant to echo the types of things or concerns that people might have, or they might say if they were to oppose this measure. You can see those opposition statements did cool us off a little bit from this final ballot test. The definitely yes still stayed strong at 30.70%. But we had some voters slide into not sure, and the probably yes and the probably no just switched just a little bit. So now we're still above the 55%, but we're now within that margin of error at 57%. So we do see that negative arguments do have some strength at this ballot, for this particular ballot measure. Next slide, please. So some key conclusions for you. Is a bond measure feasible for the 2024 ballot? That was the question we started with at the very beginning here. And the answer is yes. But we do see that effective outreach and engagement is important to this measure. We see that the more people understand the actual costs, and the more they hear about the projects and the types of things that this bond could give them and give the community and their local schools, the more positive they are about the potential measure. We see that voters rank improving the quality of education in local schools as the most important issue facing the community. We see solid support for the bond measure at the initial ballot test, 70%. That's 2% higher than the original survey that was conducted last fall. We see very popular projects and improvements, strong positive arguments, and all ballot tests, most importantly, being above 55%, even after negative arguments. The challenges we see are some tax rate sensitivity to that $50 per 100 of assessed valuation rate. And I think based on that feedback, the district is pursuing a smaller bond that might be feel more affordable and comfortable for local voters. We also did see that opposition arguments did resonate. It did bring down support just a little bit. Some things that we don't know what the electoral climate will be this November. We've seen there's a lot going along nationally at the presidential level. And how that might trickle down to local ballot measures is just something to keep in mind as we watch and move forward. Next slide, please. Some observations and recommendations, just a reminder that no survey is a crystal ball. It doesn't necessarily reflect that what we see here will be the results that you get on election day. Some of that will be dependent on communication and outreach done by the district and by a potential advocacy campaign. We do recommend, though, because we see that tax rate sensitivity, to keep this affordable for voters and just have that in mind as you move forward with a potential bond measure. We do see a need for district communications and a strong independent campaign committee. Next slide, please. Next steps. We do have our informational mailer that was sent out in English and Spanish just before tonight's tonight's meeting. We are continuing outreach with the district, And as we move forward, the board will be looking to decide whether to place a measure on the November 2024 ballot, at which time you will need to transition to that independent advocacy campaign. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have for tonight about this survey, or any other questions about our communications that have been done so far.
Thank you, Ms. Coomer, and we truly appreciate your efforts and the report. At this time, I'll look toward our board members to see if anyone has any questions. Dan?
Sure. First of all, thank you. This was a very methodical and informative presentation. I don't know that I have a lot of questions as much as I think some thoughts, and certainly am supportive of the eventual action to move forward. I don't think we need to belabor the point about the need, at least amongst us as board members, and certainly with the district. We know the need. We absolutely have a need. In fact, we have a $1 billion need plus of improvements to existing facilities, new facilities, ensuring that we have school sites that are accessible, clean, state-of-the-art, and providing our students and staff with the best environment. So certainly won't belabor that. What I appreciate hearing is the feedback from folks in our district. Many of us remember our previous bond measure, the Measure G bond measure, which was very well received. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think that actually was approved by more than the 2/3 threshold. At the time, it was over 66% approval rate for Measure G. I was even around, and many of us, for Measure B. And again, a very positive response from the voters. And Mike, you were with us at that time. So we have a strong history of going to the voters when needed. And I think, we don't do it often, but when we do it, there's a sense that it's because it's needed, and there's a trust that the money that's going to be spent will be spent wisely. And what I will say, particularly with Measure G, we've delivered on those commitments and promises. And when parents, voters, the community sees that, whether it's at our school sites or other facilities that have been improved, and you can visually see that. You can go to our campuses and see major improvements, again, at our high schools, our middle schools, and our elementary schools. So I think we've earned the trust of the voters to say, hey, we've done well, we've been good stewards. And I also know, and Owen, you've done a great job of leveraging that funding. I don't know if we have a ballpark how much state money that we've brought to the table that we've been able to leverage for every dollar that we raised in bond money. How much have we brought in grants and other state funding?
All right, so, yeah, sorry, just for those who didn't hear, actually leverage our fund between Measure B and G, along with other sources like developer fees. We've received over $160 million in state matching funding. And actually, state is looking at passing another facility bond, Proposition number 2, they just approved recently, put the $10 billion bond, which $8.5 billion is going to go towards the K through 12. Like Joy mentioned, in order to be eligible for the fund, we need to put up our share of the funding in order to leverage our fund to receive the state facility bond.
Is that going to be a requirement of getting access to the state funding? Is you've got to be able to have some matching dollars? Okay.
So there's, for modernization, it's a 60-40% split where the state will provide 60% and district contribute 40%. For new construction, it's 50-50 split.
I mean, that's a great talking point in and of itself as we get down the road and talk about the advantage of passing a bond here locally is it'll open the door for potentially bringing in tens of millions of dollars to support this. So you want to be ready in the pole position, if you will, to be able to take advantage of that. So no, I thank you. The data was strong. It's great to see the positive response, and I I appreciate, I'm a bit of a government nerd, so I appreciate the intricacy about the assessed valuation, but I like to break this down to folks when they ask me, what does this really mean? It's about $10.33 a month is what we're talking about. So, I went through the Starbucks drive-through this morning, and I think I spent $14. So for the price, for less than what it costs to go through Starbucks, are you willing to make that investment into our schools for the students' futures? When people realize that's really what we're talking about, I think they're absolutely willing to say yes and to support it wholeheartedly. So, yeah, I think this is great. The information is very positive. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dan. And as we take a look at the report, for me, as I think about it, our district, the community has always been very supportive of Colton Joint Unified School District. We oftentimes talk about us being a family within the district. Well, the family grows from outside the district as well. And they associate themselves because many of the individuals who live in the communities went to our schools. And many of them are very proud graduates of our schools. So, it doesn't surprise me, at least though Ms. Coomer did say that the percentages that we're looking at is not reflective of what could happen, but in a lot of sense, it gives a good snapshot toward how our communities feel about the district, and just like what my partner here, Dan, said, what we've been able to do with past bonds as well. I think we need to take note with Ms. Coomer, what she mentioned about us really taking a look at the affordability and making the choice that we feel that will allow our families in our communities to feel comfortable with the decision that they're making would also be a big, big plus. So that's something I think we also need to really consider. But other than the fact that we're looking to do a lot of wonderful things, I know that over the last bond measures and some of the improvements we've made, we as a district have always put up big signs saying your bond money at work for you. And we made sure that the community knew that what they voted for was going toward the projects that we ended up completing and continue to work on. Yes, sir.
We're going to take that up a notch because we have Eric Perez here now with his awesome Instagram reels, and we're going to be going out to sites and putting reels out there for people to see it and real life footage of all the work that's been done to get that out there as well on top of the signage.
Yes, yes, and as we take a look at marketing down the road, and don't want to start campaigning too early, but we probably could be very proactive by going around and maybe doing a footage of what we've already accomplished, and what our intent for the next bond, so that people could start seeing, hey, you know what? Look at what they've already accomplished. I've said this before, but I'll just quickly state it again. The last week that I had an opportunity to drive around the district with Jerry Amadeus, me and him went around the district, and he made a comment to me. He goes, Frank, this district sure doesn't look like when we first started, did it? And I go, you're right. When we take a look at what we've been able to do with bond money, and also with individuals like Owen, I praise him a lot, and his staff for bringing extra state money and extra monies in as well. We've done an excellent job. We've facelifted this whole district, though there are still a lot of work still to be done. As Dan noted, we still got a lot of almost $1 billion worth of work that we can try to get to, and I think that as long as the community is able to see what we're trying to accomplish here, I think we're going to get a positive nod. That's my feeling anyway.
We are very blessed to have Owen Chang in our district.
Oh, yes.
I accepted this job, and I talked to people at the state level that I worked with at my past place, and I told them where I was going. They were like, you got Owen Chang there. He's amazing. And that's true story, too, right? So he's well known throughout the state, so we can never let this guy leave. Never.
To further what you said,
yes. Yes, Pat, go ahead, please.
You know, when you're talking about showing the things that we've done, and if it's, I don't know if we have, I'm sure we do, but photographs of, say, whatever, something we did at Colton High School, like the before and the after, I think that would be more impact of just showing a picture of, look at the math and science building, because people don't even remember now what it looked like before. So if we could do kind of comparisons, we did this with and this, to show that we've been good stewards of their money and what we've accomplished.
I agree. And, you know, it's interesting to see the dynamics because, you know, I would not have guessed until I saw it when I was going over our information, how at least the voters that we have in our district, 18 to 35, the largest percentage. You know, I would have thought it was going to be between 50 and 60, you know, but, you know, and that, you know, because it's Colton. And, and when I may say Colton, I mean the district. So I can be clear on that. The point I was going to make is 18 to 35, we need to reach out to those young parents and those young students and maybe even recruit people like Mateo, who's now graduated.
And I think why you see that is Colton's unique because people don't sell their houses, they pass them down, right? So I think that's why you have that large population at 18 to 35 because their houses are being passed down. And that's why the low tax rate for them too, because their assessed value is at when the home was bought originally, right? So that's unique for us, and we benefit from that, right? Because like Mr. Flores said, only $10 a day, right? If you have the voters 18 to 35, they're the people that are going to Starbucks and spend. They say, oh, that's not a big deal, right? And stuff like that. But if these homes were selling and then they reassessed at $500,000 and stuff like that, our data could look completely different. So we're blessed to have that here.
Yes, yes.
They don't hand on the dresses, they sell them.
Yeah. So anyway, any other questions? Bertha, please.
Yes, yeah, I had a question about the timeline. I mean, here we are, July 18th, and 4 months, November to November 5th. My question is, there's a lot of work to be done. At what point is the oversight committee selected, and what is their job from that point on?
Joy, I can take that if you, a little bit of that, or if you want to start it off on that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Oversight Committee is formed after the bond passes. Legislatively, there is a requirement. I think it's 60 days after the bond's passed, if my memory serves me correct. And it is made up of very specific community members. So typically what districts do is they have an application on their website and they try to recruit for those very specific members that do exist on the Oversight Committee. So there are, key constituents that you have to include on that Oversight Committee. So Greg, I can throw it back to you.
Yes. So, but now the campaign committee, which can start forming, once the board takes action to approve to put it on the ballot, which we're going to bring a resolution next board meeting on the 1st, that's when, once the action is taken, then the district cannot participate in it, and that's when the campaign committee. We're there, we're getting there, it's going to be here quickly and that, but we're on pace to meet that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bertha. Joanne? No? How about you, Israel? Okay. One last point. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, I'll be brief. But and this was something that came up in a conversation I had with teachers and folks that were active with ACE. We are required, obviously, to have a bond oversight committee, and that's wonderful. Their job is to kind of look at, from a financial perspective, almost as an audit, if you will, that we've spent the dollars well within the requirements of the bond. But some thought and questions were asked about how are we going to identify the projects, because we have such a huge need, lots of priorities, but we're going to have to make choices. We're going to have to prioritize certain things, and equity across the district is important, equity across the schools as well. So I know our elementary teachers are saying, hey, just make sure you don't forget about us. We've got needs at the elementary site. Maybe we don't get quite as much play, if you will, let's say the high schools where you tend to have more folks coming for different sporting events. Can we look at forming a committee or working group, if you will, of stakeholders within the district that can help kind of provide information and help us identify what those needs are at the various sites. And again, a tremendous amount of need, no question. But I'm sure the board wants to be fair and equitable about the distribution of funds and the types of projects that we select.
That's a great question. In my past experience, in my past district, what we did was we had a bond committee. We had board members on there. 2 of them volunteered or were selected to go on there, and there's various people. And then they would make recommendations of what is going to be next. Like, we take it by series, right? We have our series, whatever we're taking out, we know the dollar amount. So that group would meet, board members would be represented as for the whole of the group, and then bring that information back to the board, the recommendation, so there's input all over. Because you're right, there's so much need, what are we gonna tackle first and stuff like this and that. So the first thing would be knowing the amount of dollars we get from the first series, and then meet as that group to give input to the rest of the board to say, yes, this is what we wanna go out for. But you're absolutely right, we need input, because everybody's gonna want their one thing, right? We want this, we want that, right? So that's why it's crucial that we have that participation and make the right choices at the right time based on the need at that time.
The only thing I'd mention on that is we still have the board's priority list that we developed years ago that it's timely to actually look at it again. And I know Owen and his team and, was part of that process way back when we developed that. So we don't want to lose sight of that, but also coupled with where we're at today. Absolutely, we got to, and then bring it to the board for the board's direction, and then we go off and Owen never stops. So I'll just say, you see the projects that are going on today, and I'll tell you, you see the signs. You'll see them right now across the Grand Terrace Elementary. You see the sign, Colton Joint Unified, bond dollars at work. And I just have to say that since I've been here anyways, that work has never stopped, and it's going to continue. So we're excited about this and very passionate about the work that's happening to improve our schools. And the last story is I recently was talking to R.C. Heredia, who's a former graduate of Colton High, and he just mentioned to me at one of our Tomorrow Leaders Foundation meeting, I don't recognize Colton High School anymore. And I said, a good thing? And he said, absolutely a good thing. It's a fabulous thing. And the transformation that's happening, and we need that kind of transformation. If we want to change our academic, also, scores and things like that, it does take the facilities piece, because we know that curb appeal and having safe schools for all our teachers and clean schools and state-of-the-art schools is a priority of this board. So that's why we're here today. So
yes, and waiting till the culinary arts is completed. Oh wow, another bow.
I'd like to say finally, and lastly, and that is, this is very important that we market this out, because our facilities and what we do will keep kids here, and it will also attract more kids here as well. So that's why it's very market it, and we make the right choices of what the next thing is going to be done with those bond dollars.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ms. Coomer, is there anything else that you would like to share with the board? Anything you'd like to add after listening to our discussion?
Yes, I would like to also say that while I have found Owen particularly wonderful to work with and would love to add my endorsement to his praise, but also all the district staff, honestly, every single person that we've had the pleasure of working with the past few months on the district, from the superintendent to Greg to Owen to Katie, have just been exceptional, and they represent your district so well. And so it has been my great pleasure to be working with you on this as we move forward. And I look forward to completing our communication materials and setting the district up for success.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank your interpreters for being part of our report today, and to thank you once again, and I hope that you feel better soon.
Mr. Ibarra, one
you
more
very
thank you needs to
much.
go out to Brandon and his technology team for swiftly putting this together. And that's so kudos to his team. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. All right. So if there's no other questions, Dr. Miranda, are we?
I absolutely, we're good in, just to know, we did have bond counsel, and I know that Nick and David Casanoka were on, or just Nick, to ensure that process is a very legalistic process too, that we're following everything, and then our financial advisor. It's a phenomenal team that Greg put together, so kudos to Greg putting this together, and I got an opportunity to be part of the process early on as well. As we move forward to the next phase, we're not done yet. We're going to bring back the resolution for board approval in our recommendation, and we look forward to moving forward.
One more thank you. I want to thank you, Mike Williams. Now, we're very lucky here to have a financial advisor that is invested in the district. This man grew up here. He went to our schools. He cares about Colton Joint Unified. You don't usually find that in a financial advisor to a district, so we're very grateful to have him. He drove all the way up from the cool temperatures of Carlsbad to the hot IE, so thank you for taking your time and all you do for Colton, Mike, so thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you, Mike. Always good to see you, Mike. Okay, thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. All right, very good job, everybody. So with that, we'll move right into our action items. We do have 5.1 through 5.73. At this time, I would entertain anyone who might like to pull anything for separate consideration. If not, I would entertain a motion for approval. Yes.
Yes, I'd like to pull 5.59.
5.51, you said? 5.9. Okay. Any others that anybody else would like to pull up? No? Okay. So with that being said, I'll be looking for a motion for approval for 5.1 through 5.73 with the exception of 5.59. Okay, thank you, Israel.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. All right. We do have a motion to approve Board Member Israel Fuentes and second by Board Member Dan Flores to approve action items 5.1 through 5.73 with the exception of 5.59. Let's go for the vote unless anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns. All those in favor indicate by stating aye. Aye. Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? At this point, we have a 6-0 vote with Board Member Sandoval absent on a motion by Board Member Israel Fuentes and second by Board Member Dan Flores. Carried on a 6-0 vote. The board approves action items 5.1 through 5.73 with the exception of 5.59. Okay? So now let's take a look at 5.59, which is the approval of agreement with Leadership Associates, LLC, for executive advisement services for the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources during the school year of 2024-25 school year. Okay. Okay. I'll have a motion for approval by Dan Flores.
I'll second.
And second by Israel Fuentes. Okay. Any comment, concerns? No? Okay. So we do have a motion to approve 5.59 by Dan Flores, second by Israel Fuentes. If there's no questions, comments, or concerns, all those in favor indicate by stating aye. Aye. Anyone oppose? Oppose? Opposed? Okay. And any abstention? Okay. At this time, we have 4-2 with Board Member Sandoval absent. The opposing votes are Pat Haro and Bertha Flores. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move right into administrative reports. If there's any items on 6.1, approval of disbursements, let me know. Item 6.2, which is approval of change order for Terrace Hills Middle School interim housing project per Board Resolution 24-69. Item 6.3, facility update, no update. Item 6.4, an ACE update. I don't see no representatives. Item 6.5, CSEA update. Okay, everybody's on vacation. Item 6.6, MAC update. Okay, thank you. And item 6.7, ROP update. Yes, Pat.
Very quick, 2 items that I just wanted to share. We had from Colton 14 students from our Grand Terrace High School Medical Assistant Program who interned at ARMC in June. 3 of those students were encouraged to apply for jobs. So that's pretty cool that they're getting asked to apply for jobs. So that means they saw something in these amazing kids. The other thing I wanted to just talk about is mention that at all 3 schools that are districts that CRIRA services, all of the automotive students will be our students. All of the automotive teachers are we approved for them to go up north, and they were recommended first to Tesla, and Tesla referred them to another company, and all the automotive teachers are gonna be taught how to teach their students how to work on electric vehicles. And they're also going to be receiving an electric vehicle engine or whatever. Yeah, I guess it's an engine. I guess it's still called an engine. I don't know. And so that they have to work to teach the kids in the program. So yeah, it's pretty exciting that they're going to spend 8 days up there learning from the best. So it's pretty cool.
And the students are going to be able to build this electric vehicle. It's technically like a skeleton of the vehicle. Yeah. So they're going to build the vehicle, and then at the end of the school year, they're going to have to break it down so that the next class can take it. So it's going to be a challenge for them. They're going to learn about A through Z on the vehicle, and then they're going to have to break it down. And so they will get this skeleton vehicle, electric vehicle, which is drivable, correct, Pat? Mm-hmm. But it's only going to like 10 miles an hour, but that's as fast as the car goes. But that's just for them to be able to move the vehicle around their area from one stall to the other. So it's amazing.
That'll be a very viable skill. I tell you, if you go into that field, heck, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, 7.1, Superintendent communicate.
Board President, can I add one more thing?
Yes,
real
you
quick?
May. Yes.
We also had a board CRIROP Foundation meeting that day also, and mark your calendars. I just wanted to share a date with you. We have placed a date for the Evening of Excellence for May 14th of 2025. It will be at Valley College again, like we did this year. I think it was very successful there. And so we do have that date set already for May 14th of 2025 at Valley College, and more to come. And then we also had some membership changes on the board there. We had 2 people resign, and we did have somebody else get put in that place, another director put in the place. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Board President. Oh, no, not at all. Give me a chance to get some water. Thank you for that. So good evening, everybody. Wow, it's good to be back, right? I know some folks are still on summer break. Our teachers, our students, but our administrators are back. So with that, I do want to start off with the first slide, which is our Back to School Resource Fair. This is our annual Student Services Resource Fair. They've been collaborating with various departments to host a Back to School Resource Fair. And this awesome fair that Student Service puts on will take place this Saturday, July 20th, beginning at 8:30 at 850 East Washington, just right next to us. So right here in the same parking lot here on, and so the Student Services Department will be giving out backpacks and a way to students, various resources to families that need them. So please come join us for this great event. So again, it's going to be this Saturday here at the 850 East Washington Student Services Building. I believe it's right in the parking lot area where the celebration is had. I attended last year, and it's just an awesome event, and we give a lot of backpacks and resources. So thank you, Student Services, putting that on. Look forward to that. Next slide, please. So our Career and Resource Fair, so shout out to Adult Education in conjunction with EQUIS. They are going to host a Career and Resource Fair on July 26th. The fair will take place at the Adult Education building location, which is in Bloomington, and that will begin at 10 a.m. So several local employers and resource agencies will be on campus providing career and resource information to interested community members. So come out, please join us for the first career and resource event to kick off the 24-25 school year. And we have our adult school principal there in the audience, Ms. Hatter, who's promoting that. So thank you, Ms. Hatter, for putting that together for our community. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to that, too. Last but not least, very excited. I'm pleased, and I've been making kind of a big deal of this, right, to announce our first ever kickoff event for our Colton Joint Unified School District staff. So this event's going to take place next Wednesday, July 31st, or the following Wednesday. Next Wednesday is the 24th, and after that. So I'm already super excited that I already want to get to it. So this is July 31st. I don't want to confuse anybody. Beginning at 9 a.m. And this is going to be unique because this event will be a hybrid event for all staff. I'm hopeful the event will welcome all staff back with enthusiasm and to begin the new year with eagerness and passion. My goal will be to motivate staff by highlighting some of the district's achievements and positivity and things that we've done by creating excitement. I'm going to discuss the district's vision, our strategic plan, our design plan, discussing our goals and our objectives. And also, I'll have Board President Frank Ibarra deliver a message to all of you. So we're very excited about this. And right after that, we're going to have a district-wide barbecue hosted by our awesome M&O Director, David Bell, who's volunteered to put that together out here. So it's going to be an awesome event, and just looking forward to that. So we have a lot of things going on, and just for students and parents, we start August 1st, first day of school. So just get ready. Hopefully you guys are reading and just getting back to it a little bit. I know you still have a little break left, but enjoy it while you can. And I'm sure parents are very excited to get the kids back at school. And teachers, I know you guys are very excited to come back and we look forward to seeing all of you, and it's just going to be an awesome year, 24-25, looking forward. Thank you, and that's my communique this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go right into board member comments. Pat.
Okay, so I went to 2 conferences while we've been on break, and I want to talk about the wellness conference. I started out with our superintendent of schools, Sir San Bernardino, and then he introduced Tony Thurman. And this is the first time he's come to our Southern Regional Wellness Conference, which is having the name shortened because we had over 800 attendees. And many were not from Southern California. They're coming now from all over the state to come to it. So it was really amazing. But Tony Thurman spoke about several things, but one of the things he spoke about and was passionate about, he said there's 3 things he really wants to focus on this year. And one of them is promoting wellness centers. So it was really great because we're already doing that. And I had the pleasure, both myself and Board Member Fuentes, we had the pleasure of sitting in to one of our breakouts, and it was titled Wellness Centers Redefined, a Visionary Approach to K-12 Wellness and Mental Health Support. And earlier in the year, we always receive emails that say, nominate someone to speak at our conference. So I contacted Antonio and said, hey, we're doing great things in Colton. Let's get somebody to do a proposal. And they did. And we had Jessica Medrano from Washington and Valerie Cesena from Bloomington High School, our Wellness Center associates for both of these schools, present. And when you go to a conference, there's larger rooms and there's smaller rooms. I guess they kind of base on, how many people are going to show up for that particular subject. The room was standing room only. And these 2 young ladies, from what I understand, they were very nervous about doing it and speaking in front of a group of people. And then when they saw how many people, that was made it a little worse. But they were phenomenal. They were phenomenal. They just did such a great job. They had so many people asking questions and stayed after. And the next group who was going to be using that room was trying to push everybody out to get ready for theirs. But that people were just asking us questions about it and how the board approved this and how long have we been doing it and how are we doing it and what are we doing. And it was just amazing. And I just wanted to send a shout out. Thank you, Antonio, and both of these young ladies for what they did. I mean, because it truly was amazing. And when they were done, they were just so happy because they had made it through and that it was so well received. So I just wanted to give a shout out to how amazing they were. And I went backwards because I wanted to give a shout out to our Wellness Center associates. Our conference after we had Tony Thurman and Ted Alejandre speak, we had a motivational speaker. Every day we had a different speaker. 2 of them, they were okay, but the one. There was a motivational speaker that I think as long as I live, as long as I do this job and beyond, I'm gonna cry already, I will never, ever forget what I heard that day. The impact in that room with 800 people, we were all, men and women, in education crying. The gentleman is named Dr. Manny Scott. And Dr. Scott is one of the first original students who was involved in the movie Freedom Riders. He was one of the Freedom Riders. He started his presentation with a video, and the video was basically the trailer to the movie Freedom Riders. The room was dark because they were showing it on a movie screen. Then the lights didn't come on. He walked out from the back and he was singing a song, and a very emotional song about the power of one and the power of one and what it means. And as I said, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and he was just getting started. I encourage this district to look up Dr. Manny Scott and have him here in Colton. It will make a difference, truly, in every educator's mind. And he talks about the power of one, meaning the people who saved his life from a life on the streets, from a nutrition services worker to a teacher to everyone who made a difference in his life. And what a difference each one of us can make no matter what position we do. It was the most powerful thing I have ever heard. You can go on YouTube and see some shorts, some parts of his talk, but to hear him do it in person and to see the emotion and watch him cry when he tells you what he went through and what he'd been through is beyond anything you will ever hear a motivational speaker talk about. It was tremendous. So I really, really hope that we can bring him here. He does speak to, obviously, to staff, and he also speaks to students. And the last video, well, the last two videos he showed us was one where he spoke to high school kids. And he talked about how, you know, the pressures and suicide, thinking of suicide, and being in a gang, and being all these different things. And when he was done speaking, every one of those students came up to him and hugged him. And he didn't show their faces, but you could hear their voices, and their voices were saying, I wanted to commit suicide. I was jumped into a gang. I'll never forget what you said, all the things he said listening to these students. And the same thing he did with, he had talked about all these people who meant something to, who helped him in his life. And he talked about one lady who was a nutrition services worker. And she was Russian and had a very thick accent, and he actually imitated her accent. And he had finally just said, I can't do this anymore. He was put into a special ed class because he had a lisp. And I'm sorry, not a special ed. He was put into ESL class, and they kept him there for a year. He was, yeah. And he was in this class for a year, and he was ready to give up and just couldn't do it anymore. And he was climbing over a fence to get out of school, and he wasn't coming back. And this nutrition services worker called him from across the floor and said, come back, come back. And he came back, and he listened to her, and she told him he was destined for great things. And he talked to her before she passed away, and he told her that he was now Dr. Manny Scott, and she knew that he had done what she said he would. So like I said, I'm sorry to keep going, but it was just a phenomenal speaker. I've never heard anything like it. And we were all, even Mr. Fuentes was over there crying. We were all, everybody was crying and passing the tissues. Ted Alejandro was sitting next to me crying. We were all crying. All his staff was crying. Everybody was crying. So it was just the most emotional thing I've ever been a part of. And like I said, I think everybody could benefit from hearing this, because, you know, all of us do things for kids, but, you know, sometimes we get tired, you know, y'all get tired and sometimes don't realize you're making a difference. This makes you realize why you're doing what you're doing. It reminds you of it, and it was just phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you for sharing. Okay, Joanne. Okay, Bertha. Israel.
Thank you, Board President. You know I have a comment. First of all, welcome everyone. I know administrators are back in our schools, at our sites, and welcome to you, and welcome to everybody else. Our teachers, our nutrition, I know, has been out all summer long, and they have been working hard. If in our M&O, the staff also has been out there making sure our sites are looking good and sharp and ready. Just welcome everybody, because I know everyone's getting ready to bring those scholars in for a new school year. And so I'm very excited. I won't be here for the kickoff. I won't be here for the backpack giveaway this coming weekend. I got to take some time for my familia. I've been at some conferences also. And as Pat was sharing about the wellness conference, it was an amazing conference. It's one of those conferences I've been going since 2010 as a parent and now as a board member. And Dr. Manny Scott really touched us. I mean, it was one of those things that everybody was talking about in the conference. One of the things that Pat was talking about is when he spoke to the high school students. He said that he had left the microphone on, and he left the microphone on by mistake. And as the students were coming to him, they were saying, "I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to die. I wanted to run away. I wanted to do." He didn't know that this was being recorded until he went back after that to see the thing, and he heard these student voices in the microphone about them wanting to commit suicide, wanting to do this. So the way that he impacted us as an adult, I can imagine what the kids were feeling too. During the wellness conference, we did have the CJUSD wellness team out there, also Valeria and Jessica. They did a phenomenal job. And one of the things, I had the opportunity to speak to the group there, and so did Pat Haro. We had the opportunity to speak to them and tell them how the wellness rooms have made a difference in our schools. From attendance to graduation rates to having the students come to school. Having that opportunity where a student can actually go in and say, "I need to talk to somebody. I need somebody to listen to me. I need someone to just give me a hug." The wellness rooms in our district, 6 years ago we started this. And I remember it was Mateo Cisneros that kind of opened the door to this at Colton High School. And I remember walking into that wellness room and the peace that was in that wellness room. The music, the ambiance. I said, this is going to be key for our students. Little did we know that a little bit after that, we were going to go into a little thing called COVID. A lot of things happened 2.5 years in COVID to many students. We came back and there were some problems, some issues. And these wellness rooms really opened the door to help these students. Not just the students, but even our staff, even our community, even our parents. You know, looking for help. So I want to commend our staff, our wellness staff. Antonio Castro, thank you for being that lead. If many of you don't know, but our wellness team or our mental department, our health department here at Colton, has been called out to other districts, our neighboring districts, because we have a task force of about 38, 40 interns that are ready to go in case a child commits suicide or something happens on campus. And our neighboring districts have called us to come out there and assist them. This is a success of our wellness rooms, our wellness department. I call it wellness department because that word mental sounds kind of weird. But I call it a wellness department. Why? Because we are here to take care of our students. Dr. Manny Scott brought a lot of information. He brought his story. But the way he brought his story, like Pat said, started off singing. I guess it's a song that he probably wrote. There was a bench set out on the stage, a chair, and you can feel the impact. The way he felt, you felt it. I kid you not. To be able to have a crowd of 800 plus people, even the Disney staff that was putting water out and putting things out, they didn't want to leave. They kind of made it last forever as they were putting stuff out, pins, napkins, whatever they were doing, because it was so impactful to everybody that was there. I turned around and looked, and there was an MC there, a DJ, and I can see him wiping his face down because he impacted 800 plus adults that day. Here at CJUSD, we impact our students every day. Not just teachers, our M&O, our custodians, our nutrition staff, our directors, superintendents, the board. We all impact. There's a saying out there, it takes a village, right? It takes a village. there's always that one student. Every time I go onto a campus, I always have a student come up to me and they'll ask me, Mr. Fuentes, can I give you a hug? Mr. Fuentes, can I give you a high five? Mr. Fuentes, can I fist bump you? Why? Because sometimes that's what the student needs, acknowledgement, and we are there for that. Our students will succeed, and a lot of times we've succeeded because of that one person. I have a person, my 5th and 6th grade teacher, Mr. Friesen, an older gentleman, about 6 foot tall, wore moccasins every day to school. I could still smell his aftershave. Gold chain, big old rings, white gentleman, Mr. Friesen. He impacted me so much. I remember one day I wanted to step out of school and say, I can't do this anymore. He turned around and looked at me and he said, Izzy, you can and you will. And you will become someone successful. But you always got to put that will in you. And that's where that ganas comes from. Because somebody else later on told me the same thing. And you guys know the story. Jaime Escalante said, Israel, you got to have ganas. These people impacted me, and this is where I sit today. I've done many things in my short life. Many things, from acting to radio to law enforcement to retail. You name it, I've done it. Public relations, all of that. Because someone one day said, you can. And I know each and every one of you have a story like that. I won't talk anymore, but thank you. Have a great year. Let's stick together because CJUSD does care, and we all care. I know all the board members here on this board, we care for each and every one of you and each and every one of our students. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Israel. Dan. Okay. And, okay, maybe we get you out and still be a little light out there. I just want to, one quick comment. I just want to say, and congratulations to all those who put together, Mr. Neighbors, the retreat that we had yesterday with the management. I think it was very well done. I think it was very informational. The speakers, all 3 of them, were really good. And I just want to say kudos to everybody that was there, number 1. And number 2, that we were able to provide not only our current management staff, but the new staff coming in with that opportunity. So just say thank you to all. With that, the board will now adjourn into closed session to discuss the items listed on the closed session agenda. Thank you. Okay, let's go get started and get everybody home. It's 8:38. The board's back in session. Let's take a look at 10.1 student discipline, readmissions for 2024-2025. There were two student readmissions presented in closed session in accordance with the California Education Code 48916. An expulsion order shall remain in effect until the governing board, in a manner described in this article, orders the readmission of a pupil. The two students have been expelled from the Cone Joint Unified School District for a violation of California Education Code 48900 or 48915. The student cases were reviewed by administrators in the Department of Student Services, and upon review has completed the plan of rehabilitation as directed by the board and is eligible for readmission. Is there a motion to approve the readmission of the students as presented? Thank you, Pat.
I'll second.
Second, okay, thank you. All right. On a motion by Board Member Pat Harrow and second by Board Member Bertha Flores, it's to approve the readmission of the two students who have met the plan of rehabilitation as directed by the board and it's eligible for readmission. All those in favor indicate by stating aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? 6-0 with Ms. Sandoval absent. So on a motion by Board Member Pat Harrow and second by Board Member Bertha Flores and carried on a 6-0 vote, the board approves the readmission of the two students who have met their plan of rehabilitation, numbers 1060469 and 1045917. 10.2 student discipline, non-readmission, 2024-2025. There are 5 recommendations to deny readmission for 5 students presented in closed session. In accordance with the California Education Code 48916, an expulsion order shall remain in effect until the governing board, in a manner described in this article, orders the readmission of the pupil. The 5 students have been expelled from the Cone Joint Unified School District for a violation of California Educational Code 48900 or 48915. The student cases were reviewed by administrator in the Department of Student Services and upon review have not completed their plan of readmission as directed by the board and are not recommended for readmission. Is there a motion to deny readmission of the 5 students as presented? Okay. Thank you, Joanne. And thank you, Pat. So on motion by Board Member Joanne Thorin Ojeda and second by Board Member Pat Harrell to deny the readmission of 5 students who have not met the plan of rehabilitation as directed by the board. All those in favor indicate by stating aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? So on a motion by Joanne Thorin Ojeda and second by Pat Harrell and carried on 6-0 vote, the board denied readmission of the 5 students who have not met the plan of rehabilitation. Students number 1082301. The second new, or I'll say NEW. The third 10459-322. The fourth 1037289. And the last one 1082954. Okay, Joanne? Okay. Items 10.3, personnel, public employee, appointment, discipline, dismissal, or release. On a motion by Board Member Dan Flores and second by Board Member Israel Fuentes and carried on a 6-0 vote. The board approved the following. Certificated coaches, 5. Head junior varsity football boys, head varsity cross-country co-ed, head varsity wrestling boys, head varsity wrestling girls, varsity basketball assistant. Certificate regular staff, 34. Learning specialist, 2. School psychologist, 3. SPED teacher, 4. Teacher, 25. Classified management, 1. Visual and perform arts, VAPA manager. Classified coaches, 16. Basketball assistant girls, head junior varsity basketball boys, head junior varsity soccer girls, head junior varsity softball girls, head varsity baseball boys, head varsity basketball boys, 2. Head varsity basketball girls, head varsity softball girls, head varsity tennis boys, head varsity volleyball girls, junior varsity football assistant boys, prep squad director co-ed, soccer assistant boys, varsity football assistant boys, 2. Volunteer coaching, 2, cross-country co-ed, and football boys. And item 10.4, personnel public employee appointment. In closed session, and on a motion by Board Member Israel Fuentes and second by Board Member Pat Harrow, and on a 6-0 vote, the board appointed the following: Daniel Morgan, elementary school principal. Okay, great. With that, I see that we're at 8:45. I hereby adjourn.